Once again, welcome brothers and sisters to the third day of the DGB BW Asia Partners Regional Workshop 2021, Trade, Union, Solidarity in Pandemic Times. Same like yesterday, let me see the reactions from all of you. Show us, how are you feeling? Send us some emojis. Can I have a heart? Can I have a thumbs up and heart? Let us show some reactions. Okay, thank you brothers and sisters. Wow, we have an afternoon full of hearts today. So I hope you are all excited as I am to follow today's agenda. Because brothers and sisters, before we begin, do you remember yesterday we agreed that we were going to play a little game, a little homework. It's not Squid Game, yes, but it's about your favorite cartoon character. So, brothers and sisters, is there anyone who is interested to volunteer themselves to explain your favorite cartoon characters and why it represents you? Let's see the cartoons that you have chosen yesterday. The first cartoon here we have from Snoopy. And it appears that Tanya chose this one. Tanya, would you care to explain to us why you chose Snoopy? Tanya, you're still with us? Tanya? Sister Tanya? Yes? Would you care to explain why you chose Snoopy? Oh, it appears like we cannot hear you, Sister Tanya. Perhaps you would like to...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Sorry, we have some disturbance from Germany. So, well, I chose Snoopy because Snoopy can also be seen as a role model, because especially when you're anxious or when you're stressed out, you know, Snoopy a lot of times tries to see the bright side of life and to calm you down. And because there is always this you know, he's sitting there or lying there on this dog house and just relaxing. And as you also chose this picture with the chicken, he also is very caring and tries to embrace life and the loving people around you.
Oh, thank you, Sister Tanya, for explaining that. Indeed, Snoopy is a very lovely character and always see the bright side in life. Thank you for that. We see now the next character who is on the list. Oh, Mulan. It appears that the one who chose this is Sister Ram. Sister Ram, would you like to explain to us why you chose Mulan?
Yes, she's my favorite character because she's very brave despite the culture or tradition that sees women as weak. She go beyond the expectations and succeed in what she really loves. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ram. It was amazing, yes. A brave person, right? A brave hero for many, especially for women and girls around the world. Okay, next character we have Anna from Frozen, and it appears that Sister Afsana Akhtar is the one who chose this. Sister, would you care to explain why you chose Anna? Oh, it appears like, Sister Afsana is not here yet. Okay, we move on the next character here. We have Naruto Uzumaki, and we have Brother Akbar here. One of them is who chose Naruto. Brother Akbar, would you care to explain to us why you chose Naruto? No? Okay. Next on the list then. We proceed. Okay. This one is the one that we all choose. We choose Pikachu. And Sister Anna, would you care to explain why you choose Pikachu? Sister Anna, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here because Pikachu is the irresistibly adorable electric mouse Pokemon and the most recognizable Pokemon ever. Yeah, because Pikachu is very silly, just like me, and just happy all the time, but very loyal. Yeah.
All right.
I
Thank you,
look like
Sister
Pikachu,
Anna.
right?
Yeah, everybody loves Pikachu, Sister Anna, of course, yes. Okay, thank you, Sister Anna. Next one
Thank you.
on the list, we have Marlin from Finding Nemo and apparently Sister Sakshi. Would you care to explain in short why you chose this?
Oh, okay. So this was the last movie I watched, so I remember, and I really enjoy Nemo's father, Marlene's character. He's kind of like really nice, caring, kind, and then in the beginning he was quite protective of his son. But the end, as the movie finishes, he's like, let it go, becomes really optimistic, and he lets his son have his own way, enjoy life. So yeah, kind of like I really enjoy his character, nice.
Wow, thank you, Sister Sakshi. That was lovely. Hopefulness, never give up, right? And solidarity, always trying to find that way out. Thank you, Sister Sakshi, for sharing with us. Actually, we have more characters, but due to limited time, we will stop it right here. But brothers and sisters, before we proceed, we would like to read out several set of rules that we agreed upon in this event. So the first rule, there's a bit of change. Yesterday we said you can turn on or off your camera, but now, maybe in the third day, we would like to see you to turn on your camera. We want to see all of you, your smiles, right? Your hopefulness in this workshop. The second rule is please change your name into the format of name-organization. The third rule, please mute your audio while other sessions are in progress. The fourth rule, please type any questions in the Q&A box. And the fifth rule, you may give stickers to express your feelings about the discussion. So show us some emoji, some hearts, some thumbs up. Show us how expressive you are about this workshop. And don't forget, last but not least, to fill up the attendance form. For your information, brothers and sisters, you can also watch this event on our YouTube channel, TURC, right now. And please kindly like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Our first agenda today, brothers and sisters, is a panel session titled Between Flexibility, Precarity, and Informality, Social Protection for Labor. This session will be led by the moderator of the session, Brother Enrico Otang, the Executive Director of TURC. I would like to also please kindly remind all of you here as the participants to mute your audio during the presentation. Should you have any questions, please type your questions in the Q&A box. So, brothers and sisters, before we start, let us watch a short video about the session. Enjoy!
Social Security for the workers is a form of protection that is a part of the social protection system provided to workers and their family against various labor market risks, such as risk of job loss, decrease in wages, work accident, illness, disability, elderly, death, and others. In development countries, Social Security for workers is the most important part of the social protection system because almost all families of the workers will be covered by the Social Security programs. Unfortunately, in developing countries, workers' Social Security still includes only a small percentage of workers and their family, particularly those working in the formal sector. In fact, in many developing countries, especially in the South and the Southeast Asia, the informal economy is an important, substantial part of the workforce. One of the biggest problems in the social protection schemes for workers is accessibility. The numerous types of job and status that also vary, ranging from permanent to daily employment status, impacting many workers of not getting social protection as they should. The issue of regulation governing social protection schemes remains an obstacle that needs to be immediately searched a way out, especially relates to the involvement of the informal workers in the social protection schemes. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic that hit the world, the need for social protection is becoming eminently important to be prioritized. The economic and the employment shock faced by countries due to the COVID-19 pandemic further confirmed that comprehensive social protection schemes to ensure the safety and the security of the citizen in the midst of a crisis are crucial to be followed up, which if not discussed pointedly and truly can result in the high inequality and poverty. Therefore, now is a profoundly critical moment for actors in the labor sector to synergize with the various layers of stakeholders to discuss the best effort to realize a comprehensive social protection for workers and their families.
Brothers and sisters, without further ado, let us give the warmest welcome to Brother Enrico Otang. The screen is yours.
Hello, everyone, brothers and sisters. Good afternoon. My name is Enrico Tang. I'm the Executive Director of the Human Rights Centers. Thank you for the moderator already introduced me. And today I will be serving as your moderators today and to discuss the very important topic for the working class at the moment, in the midst of the crisis time caused by the pandemic COVID-19. We will discuss about the topic between flexibility, precarity, and informality, social protections for labor. We will learn from the case study, especially in India, from the case study in India and Indonesia about topics. So, brothers and sisters, social protection is a key mechanism for creating an inclusive economy that enables workers and households to manage economic risks by reducing vulnerability and increasing resilience. Contributory social security schemes also strengthen the social contract and provide a concrete basis for workers to demand support and protections when they face economic shocks due to issues such as workplace injury, illness, job loss, or layoff, or unforeseen catastrophic cases such as COVID-19. However, evidence indicates that workers face many challenges in accessing the social security benefit in the middle of flexibility, precarity, and informality in the current labor regime. For example, there are employment status often become an obstacle in accessing the benefit, especially for precarious and informal workers. So today's discussions, there are several key questions that we want to explore in these sessions, including what factors play a key role in providing social protections for workers. What are the successful strategies for social protections employed by the government or the organizations? What are its design elements contribute to the successful? And we will learn from the presenters about some examples of advocacy efforts made by trade union with regards to the advocacy efforts for the social protection. So we will discuss this topic in more details in this afternoon sessions. So I can wait to hear the speakers' point of view and their analysis on our today's topic. So before the presentations begin, please allow me to introduce our guest speaker for today's discussions. We have two speakers. Both speakers have an extensive work and experience working on social protection issues. I will introduce right away our first speakers, Sister Mirai Chatterjee. Are you already joined with us, Sister Mirai? Welcome, Sister Mirai.
Yes, I'm here.
Sister.
Namaste.
Okay.
Greetings to all sisters and brothers. Namaste.
Namaste. Sister Mirai is currently the director of the social security team at SEWA. She is responsible for SEWA's healthcare, childcare, and insurance program. She was a chairperson of the National Insurance Fimo Sewa Cooperative and the Lok Swastia Health Cooperative, both of which she is a founder. Both cooperatives are promoted by Sewa, and in addition, she is a chairperson of the Gujarat State Women Sewa Cooperative Federations of 106 primary cooperatives with 300,000 members. So welcome to Sister Mirai. And we have our second speakers, Miss Dina Prapto Raharja, also well known as Sister Dina Wisnu. She is a senior policy advisor for the Indonesian Industrial Relations Institute. Sister Dina is an associate professor and certified lecturer in international relations, an expert and trainer with 23 years of experience researching and advocating on social protections, foreign policy, and democracy, including labor issues. She is actively participating in various 1.5 track diplomacy with the United States, Australia, Japan, and second track diplomacy with Asian member states. Other than that, she's also active in combating human trafficking to the National Network to Combat Trafficking in Persons in 2006 until now, and she regularly trained Indonesian diplomats at various levels since 2010 until now. Also for senior level trainings at Bank of Indonesia and Lemhanas. So beforehand, we have already a great speakers join with us to discuss about today's topic. Welcome to Sister Mirai and Sister Dina. So before we starting to discuss about the topics, I would like to inform all the presenters about the time for the presentations. Each presenters have 20 minutes, and I or the committee team will gradually inform you about the remaining time for you for the presentations. And we also invite for the participants to provide questions or comments in the chat or Q&A column, which I will read after the presenter has finished delivering their presentations. Please mention to which presenters you address your questions. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Sister Mirai. She will deliver a presentation entitled Between the Flexibility, Precarity, and Informality, Social Protections for Labor from the Perspective and the Case Study from India. So brothers and sisters, please welcome Sister Mirai. The floor is yours. So please, thank you.
So thank you very much, Brother Andrico. And I'm delighted to be here with my sister from Indonesia. India and Indonesia have a long civilizational friendship and solidarity. And I'm delighted to be with so many sisters and brothers in the labor movement in Asia and beyond. I think we can go straight to my presentation. So I request the screen sharing. Thank you very much. Maybe we can go straight to the next slide. Thank you. Many of you would know already, but SEWA is a national trade union, India's largest trade union of women informal workers. And we are 1.8 million in 18 states. Our founder is Ela Bhatt, who's an organizer and lawyer. And we were born in the city of Ahmedabad, India, which is also the city where Mahatma Gandhi launched our freedom struggle. And we are indeed inspired by the values of Mahatma Gandhi, which is, of course, serving the poorest and most vulnerable of workers in our country, and particularly women, those who are normally unreached and forgotten. Importantly, and I'll come back to this, we organize informal workers through a joint strategy of union and cooperatives. And perhaps this is somewhat unusual. I'm not sure about Indonesia, but certainly in the Indian context it is. And over the years, we have almost 50 years now of Seva's existence. We have formed more than 150 women's cooperatives and collectives, mainly cooperatives, most of which are financially sustainable and are used, managed, and run by the informal women workers, Seva members themselves. And then also we have promoted many village-based, membership-based organizations. Next, please. Thank you. I think most of you would be familiar because my guess is it is the same in Indonesia and our other sister countries of the Asian continent. Our members are home-based workers, like the photograph you see, doing exquisite applique embroidery, street vendors, manual laborers, like the women farmers in the picture, domestic workers, and so many more trades, like construction work, of course. And then small producers or own account workers like artisans or those who make food or salt makers. Next, please. Thank you. As we organized women, our goals became quite clear. And I put this slide up because you can see social protection, or what we call social security, is embedded in our very goal. We firmly have seen and believe in Seva that it is impossible for women to reach their dream of economic empowerment and self-reliance without basic social security. And obviously full employment, as you can see, is work, income, food, and social security. And our experiences over the last 50 years have shown that at least those components, healthcare, insurance, childcare, housing, and pension, are required by informal women workers if they are to come out of poverty and move towards self-reliance. Thank you. Next, please. Yeah. I want to come back to trade union and cooperative. I mentioned this early on, and I told you that our strategy is of struggle and development through union and cooperatives. Most struggle activities is through the union. But of course, as we all know, those of us who run cooperatives, setting up a cooperative and running it properly is also a struggle. We have to struggle against middlemen, against all the exploitative forces that keep us in poverty and exploited, of course. And as I mentioned earlier, all these collectives, mostly cooperatives, are run by the informal workers themselves. They are elected onto the board. 80% of the board members, the board directors, are the workers themselves. And the rest of the 20% are professionals and support to the board of directors. When we had a critical mass of about 30 cooperatives in Gujarat, way back in 1992, 30 years or so ago, we formed a federation, which is India's first all-women cooperative federation of workers. Social protection, as you can see in the slide, is what we call one of our 4 pillars for economic empowerment of workers as well. And the others, of course, are capitalization, social protection, voice and representation, very important at every step, to have the voice and representatives of the workers themselves, and capacity building of various kinds. Next, please. I come straight to what works in social protection. So when we started out, we started as a union, and we found about 50 years ago, the public health system, Indonesia's might have been better, but ours was very poor. Basically, it was a family planning system. The whole emphasis was how to control the families of poor people, workers. And so we had to invent our own community-based primary health program. I'm talking about 40 years ago. And we developed a cooperative, which you see in the slide, called Lok Swasthya Seva Health Cooperative. Swasthya in our language means health. And then we also started a child care cooperative, because again, there was no child care, and women said we cannot go out to work and earn if we don't have full day accessible child care. And similarly, 1974, we set up our own women's cooperative bank Seva Bank. And after a few women said, you know, we get savings, we can have a safe place for our savings, we get loans, but what about insurance? So we banged on the doors of the nationalized, that those days India had nationalized insurance. So we banged on the doors of the insurance companies and they said, oh no, informal women workers, bad risk. You die too much, you get sick too much, we can't insure you. And we said, that's exactly why we need you to insure us. And so because they wouldn't have us, we formed our own insurance program, which then grew into a cooperative more than 10 years ago. We also have been organizing for social protection, apart from our own providing of services at the grassroots level to our members, to the workers. We have been organizing for social protection at the local level, at the regional and state level, because India is has a federal structure. We have many states, and of course at national and global levels, including the ILO, the World Health Organization, and so on. One of our discoveries as we went along, and my personal discovery as well, was that social protection is actually an excellent way to organize workers. When they get the services that they need, whether they from government actually reach the workers or from the workers' organizations themselves, they feel optimistic, they feel full of hope, and their trust in their own organization, be it a union or cooperative, deepens and grows. I remember just a small incident. I was working with colleagues to organize tobacco workers in one district. And the women said, we will not form a union because we'll be thrown out of work. You have come from Ahmedabad. How do we know who will stand with us? But then when they said their need was for childcare and we organized childcare services, then things started moving. Then they had trust in us because we took care of what was most precious to them, their own children. And then, of course, over the years, we've been social in India and overseas, social protection laws and greater investment in social protection, which is still needed in India. We're not there yet. For example, we are leading a universal healthcare campaign with the informal worker lens, and we are demanding of our government at least 2 to 3% of Indian GDP set aside, more so after the pandemic. Everybody knows how inadequate our public health system was to cope up with the pandemic. And similarly for quality childcare. As I told you, childcare, without childcare, women can't work. I'm sure it's the same in Indonesia and everywhere else. Now, some points designing social protection. In our experience, these points are absolutely non-negotiable. First, workers must be central to the entire process of social protection services development. We don't want laws and programs developed sitting in New Delhi when it's impossible in a huge country like ours to know what someone in some faraway tribal indigenous village needs and wants. They must be sustainable. And by this, I mean, of course, financially sustainable. We don't want something to start and then abruptly stop. Now we don't have any budget. No, they must be resourced properly. All our countries have resources and budgets. It's a question of priorities, in our opinion. And they must be preferably worker run or at least with workers' deep involvement. Otherwise, they don't really work. Because these are evolving programs, they have to be tweaked as you go along according to workers' needs and priorities. And then importantly, we want the voice of workers themselves to advocate for appropriate social protection. Next, please. This is what we have been saying to our government, state and national government, and I expect some of this is relevant to Indonesia, other Asian sister countries, and African countries and others. First of all, before you make any social protection program, please consult with workers and their organizations. Have wide-ranging consultations. It is not possible for policymakers and legislators sitting in New Delhi to know every single nuance and priority of informal workers at the grassroots. They must be universal or near universal. Unfortunately, in India, we have this problem of constantly dividing workers into above poverty line, below poverty line, and there are always inclusion errors. So we say universal. It must be according to the hours of work, ease of access of workers, We already heard the importance of access as close to them, as decentralized as possible, especially in large Asian countries like India, Indonesia, and others. We must have a strong education and awareness component. How are the workers to know about insurance? Some of these are new concepts, and what is in the scheme, what is available to them, most important for them to know. Decentralized delivery and decentralized accountability. If something's not working, where does the worker go? Where does she go for her grievance redressal? And importantly, we have been saying to our government in a large country like ours, it's better if the workers' organizations, unions and cooperatives actually implement these programs. We're ready to, we'll design together with you, and we're ready to implement also locally, decentralized by the workers. We have tried this with our own cooperatives, social protection cooperatives, so we know it's workable, and we're ready to take this responsibility, because in countries like mine, implementation and reaching the workers, reaching the last mile continues to be a huge problem. Then obviously, I've already mentioned timely grievance redressal. After 1 year, you get your social security benefit or social protection entitlement. That's not acceptable to the workers. She wants it today. And we must have laws and policies after extensive consultation, as I already mentioned. Next, please. Yeah. My last couple of slides. The first is just to give you examples historically of social protection milestones that have happened in India. I think the first important milestone which brought out social protection is what we call the Shram Shakti report on informal women workers, which happily was chaired by Ilaben Bhatt, Seva's founder and first general secretary. Shram Shakti in our language means labor power. Particularly female labor power. And it's been a landmark report and commission. It was actually a commission and came out with a Shram Shakti report. And there's an entire chapter on how to reach social protection to informal workers, way back in 1988. Then we had the second Labor Commission, which also came about after much organizing by all the trade unions. And there was an entire task force on social protection, and I was fortunate and honored to serve on that. Then the National Commission for Enterprises in the Unorganized Sector, way back in 2004, again, some stellar recommendations for social protection. Unfortunately, hardly any of them were implemented, which is another sad story of social protection advocacy in India. Then in 2008, SEVA and many other unions joined to bring about an act in security. But again, the implementation has been woefully inadequate. There have been some schemes that have been enacted, some insurance and so on, but not enough. And one of those that was developed as a result of this law is the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, the national health insurance, which interestingly was developed after the policymakers spent 3 days with us at SEVA and studied our insurance cooperative, which we call VIMO SEVA. VIMO is in our language insurance. In Hindi, it's Bima, and I think probably in Bahasa also. Also the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is more recent of the current government. These are national health insurance programs. But again, as I mentioned, they are not universal. Again and again, we keep raising the demand of universal. Microinsurance is a concept that SEVA, I'm proud to say, pioneered in India. And we just now served, it just finished on the Insurance Regulators Committee. In fact, I was honored to chair the committee to promote microinsurance for informal workers across India. SEVA Bank innovated pension for informal workers, and this again has now been taken up as a national program in India. And my final example is from the childcare scene. Apart from India, apart from SEVA in India, other colleagues in the trade union movement, NGOs, civil society advocated for a child development program. It's there, but unfortunately, it's there, it's running, but unfortunately, it's not according to the hours of informal workers. So it's an unfinished business. Next, please. I end with four key recommendations for your consideration, for considerations of all sisters and brothers in the house. First, as I mentioned, social protection is actually a very good platform for organizing workers. I already gave you one example. Also, large numbers of informal workers have joined our union once they heard about Vimo Seva, our insurance. New members came in. So it's a good way to bring more and more members into our movement. Then I think it's important for us to show what works to our governments, to show ourselves, our workers, the workers, our members, and also governments what works. Because we work closely with the workers, they themselves run these cooperatives, social protection cooperatives, so they know very well what would work and what does not work. I think very importantly, trade union and cooperative movements must work like this, very tightly together, because our goals are, of course, self-reliance of informal workers, of all workers across the globe, and we need to push. And I believe there's a really good opportunity now with the pandemic, at least policymakers in our countries and globally also are thinking, rethinking, open to ideas and suggestions, and we must together push for universal social protection. And it could be contributory, but there are many models. But of course, the government has to take the stewardship and take the main responsibility, our government. Because after all that we contribute to our national economies and GDP, that's the least that workers should get. It's our entitlement, it's our right. And finally, I think jointly unions and cooperatives, the international cooperative movement, the international trade union movement, our own trade union movements in our own countries need to demand greater investments. We've waited long enough. The pandemic has showed the gaps. So let's now demand voice and representation in the poorest, the most vulnerable, the most forgotten of informal workers. Let us not leave anybody out. And finally, we need to demand implementation by unions and cooperatives, and also monitoring by us. There's no point, having big budgets or even any budgets, and then having these services and programs actually not reach the workers. So we need to do that together, and we know that our governments cannot do it without us, without workers' organizations like unions and cooperatives. Next, please. Thank you very much. I hope I was within the time limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for Sister Miraj for the presentations. Brother and sisters, let's give once again a big round of applause for Sister Miraj for the great presentations. We learned a lot from Sister Miraj about Mirai about the Sewa initiative, how to fulfill the needs of the workers, especially women informal workers, by providing several benefits like healthcare, pensions, childcare, and so on. And it would be very crucial for organizing women informal workers and the movement, and to show the case that can be brought to the government, and the governments adopted the initiative by Sewa. It is very great experience that we will learn a lot from Sister Miraj explanation, and we will discuss further and explore further later in the Q&A session. And now, brother and sisters, we will go to our second speakers, Miss Dina. Let's welcome our second presenter, Sister Dina Wisnu. She will deliver a presentations about the same topic, but a case study from Indonesia. So without further ado, brother and sister, please welcome Sister Dina. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Brother Otang, and also to TURC and DGB Bildungswerk for inviting me to this event, a very important and timely initiative for us to discuss about precarity, flexibility, informality in the context of the pandemic and how it impacts social protection. So my angle is I'm from a group. I established a group that focuses on doing research as well as training to policymakers to provide support for advocacy projects, basically. And my passion has been on foreign policy as well as on social protection. Why? Because to me, the politics of distribution is a very important thing for everyone to understand better. So next slide, please. My angle is will be on trade unions and the labor market today. So in the first few slides, I will discuss about the labor market today. I believe that what happened in Indonesia and also in the rest of Asia cannot be separated from what happened globally, given what we have experienced recently. Labor market is among the most debated issues in the globalized world. I should say it's also the one causing the deepest fights within economists and politicians, and it affects how policymakers view labor market issues. And then I would discuss two of the most recent studies that I lead with Synergy Policies. One is on digital platform union labor economies, and how basically workers try to be visible in this digital platform economy. And the second one is how unions also try to transform their approach by providing patient navigation service in Indonesia's National Health Insurance Program. Okay, let me start. The next slide, please. As I said earlier, labor market today is facing the challenge that actually not necessarily a novelty. It's nothing very new. Around the world, we have seen how people see labor market as a divisive issue. And as the world go more globalized, basically there's a big tension between whether we should leave the labor market liberal or regulated. The next slide, please. So the question is the trade-offs between advocating the state to back off from labor market or to bring the state in. The central question is, of course, about the wage, or the economists will call it the price of the labor, and also about investment, whether there will be demand for labor. It will, in many developing countries, it depends on whether the investors would like to come into the economy. So the trade-offs between this become challenging. And when the economy slumps or goes to tank, the first thing you would notice, the first layer experiencing shock has always been the laborer or the workers. And notice the usual campaign. I noted down below the three things that we often hear in the developing countries is that one would push for competitiveness. One would push for labor productivity. But to me, this is a never-ending push. Basically, once you try to push for competitiveness and productivity, you may leave behind a lot of workers. Second thing, because if you look at the collective bargaining aspect, as the world globalized, we noticed that this right to do collective bargaining has been reduced as well, not only because the number of workers that are organized is getting smaller, the state is trying to back off more and more from the process of regulating the market for the sake of many reasons, investment for one thing. And when we push for competitiveness and then we reduce collective bargaining, what are we putting the workers into? Basically, they would lose the chance to improve their wage. And as the people gone more mix and match between how they are educated and how they are finally employed, you notice that this is a challenge that's not very easy to bridge, not even by trade unions. This is something systematic of the economic system that any countries in the world is now operating into. Not to mention that Asia, as well as the rest of the world, is aging. So you grow old, you cannot quite catch up with all the skills demanded in the world. What can you be up to? You will get increased in working hour, your workloads would get improved, continue to be added. But one should expect less about having social protection. You are assumed to be contract-based, self-employed. So social protection in particular has been pushed into this informality as well, that you are, if you are interested about protecting yourself, then better register as a self-employed. A survey done by two of these groups, Survey Jobs as well as Job Streets, this was before the pandemic. You notice that Indonesia as well as the Philippines rank among the happiness, the highest in the happiness index among the workers, despite the fact that they have low income. So this shows the challenge at the contextual level. The workers don't quite see what's missing from all this situation that actually pressing them. Next slide, please. And what I'm trying to say is that capitalism across the world continues to open new ways to propel itself back and to rebound. And capitalism does have its limit, clearly. Every time we face crisis, even under health crisis, such as this pandemic, you notice that capitalism will hit the wall, basically. But it rebounds by finding new ways that, in my view, stand on the willingness of public and state to give the chance to compromise between people being protected or people getting the opportunity, between getting good wage and social protection that's decent, or you get a job and investment comes into the country. So the trend in overall, I said around the world, this is not just in Asia, is a decline in an unemployment rate, but job quality is low. ILO confirms this. So the debate between rebound and enlarging the economy is really critical for us to engage if we really care about workers. In every stage of capitalism, solidarity and movements of workers need to transform, need to adjust. Democracies need to embrace ideas from workers to make sure that all these aspects that people experience on daily living is not forgotten. So we have to anticipate subsequent periods of crisis and shocks. That's my call in this forum, because it's very clear capitalism will continue to go into the tank sometime in the near future. Next slide, please. And capitalism replicates itself, the latest one being having the digital platform economy. And in this subsequent segment, I would highlight on the importance to do advocacy to remind states of the consequences of having unregulated labor market in this new kind of economy. Next slide. So maybe you've heard, wow, this the picture changed. It should be like two arrow going, down pushing one, partnership and employment, basically. So it's like a, what do you call that? The seesaw. So the latest information that we get is that digital platform economy is not about employment. It's about partnership. They are trying to provide not jobs, but platform where people can choose what they want, they can participate in time of their convenience, exchanging their labor for money between individuals and companies via digital platform. They will match providers and customers, and this service will be paid on a short-term and payment by task basis. Next slide. Some people call this gig economy. Gig economy, my apology, it looks so small because it's a comparison of countries. I try to put together the features of gig economy, where Synergy Policies is doing study. It's still ongoing, basically, between Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, United Kingdom, and Netherlands. So gig economy is not just a phenomenon in the developing countries. The US had it, the United Kingdom have it, Netherlands had it. What's the difference between these countries is that in the developed economies, these workers are mostly coming to the economy with certain kind of skill and certain way to defend themselves, certain way to certain experience of being unionized. These are the things that has been absent in Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia. So if I compare across the status of workers in this sector, in the case of national regulation, in terms of tax, in terms of whether they get social protection, be it health protection or employment protection, whether they have good working condition, whether they have collective bargaining ability, or whether they have freedom of expression, you'd see everything is almost red, basically, meaning it's absent. So in all these Southeast Asian countries, we are left behind because these workers are considered self-employed, regardless of the fact that workers in the sector work beyond 10 hours in some aspects in Indonesia, in some platforms in Indonesia, workers work on 12 hours, up to 14 hours a day, without any social protection. And because they are considered so-called partners, they have to pay for their own coverage on social protection. They do not constitute as the poor that can be qualified as subsidized members of the National Health Insurance Program because they have jobs and they are considered having the infrastructure such as the motorcycle or the car. But in reality, they are sacrificing their productive years for something that is eroding their health, eroding their mental health, and they are losing productivity. Unlike other sectors that we have seen
Sister Dina, sorry
Yes?
to interrupt you.
Yeah?
Can you speak slowly because the interpreter is getting difficult
Oh,
to
sorry,
follow
sorry.
the speed, your speed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for interrupt you. Please come.
It's okay. Okay. So where should I repeat? So basically, these workers, what I'm concerned about is that unlike economies in the past few decades that we have experienced before, gig economy does not quite give the chance for people to go up in the career ladder. Once you become drivers, be it courier for people or courier for goods, you will end up doing that long hours for many, many years without the chance of going up the ladder. The maximum they can do is become the captain or become one of the supervisors for the other drivers. So the concern is that not only they have lost the chance of a productivity year, their productivity years is being gone, they also eroded their health. They eroded their, they also risk having many kinds of employment injuries during their productive years. So the state is actually they are actually collecting problems that they will have to pay eventually, no matter what. So a lot of these cases in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia if you have problems, you have to face everything individually in court. Now, what does the trade unions do so far in the sector? Very, very little. So there has been efforts to organize workers in the sector, but the design of the gig economy does not quite allow workers to have time to sit, let alone to organize. And there is a very clear statements of warnings from the platform companies that these workers are not allowed to participate in any kinds of organizing activities, let alone to appear critiquing the platform employers. So another thing that you may notice as unique compared to the other economies is that the relations between those who give job order is different from like working in the manufacturing sector or in the financial sector. It's very clear who gives order and why you get paid. In the gig economy, those who pay those who give orders, is the platform. The second one is the consumer, and the third one is the store. These three are benefiting from workers in the gig economy, but the one who pays all the cost is just the consumer. That's the reality of today. So this is something that we still have to work on. Next slide, please. Now I'm moving on to the issue of social protection in general. Basically, what I'm concerned here is that it's not just about wage. In my view, as the world gone more globalized, we do have to think deep about how labor and their family members are protected from life shocks and risk, because all of these shocks and risk are certain, but how workers pay for it is getting highly and highly uncertain. Next slide, please. I'm looking now into the Indonesia's National Health Insurance Program, just to give you a comparison that what Sister Mireille mentioned earlier, Indonesia has it, a universal national health insurance program from the insurance model where people actually have to bear their own risk. They pay out of pocket without, or they go into private health insurance mechanism with no help whatsoever to the needy poor, and then going into a system that's more, there's a risk management, but still fragmented. Now we have a single payment system where the government provided 89 or promises 96.4 million people who are poor to be covered by the National Health Insurance Program, 98.6 million people. But the reality during the pandemic shows that this program is challenged. Not only the government cannot quite sustain the number of subsidized workers, a lot of people fall into the informality process. Next slide, please. Let me accelerate on how some unions have tried to transform their approach on solidarity. This is a study that's almost finished between Synergy Policies and WHO Geneva. Next slide. So we look at the spread of digital technology. I look closer into how the vision of government to improve what URSA mentioned earlier, it's very important to look at the accessibility of social protection. Now the government of Indonesia is trying to make sure that accessibility is enhanced through digital technology. They try to promote access, they make things easier through digital technology. Next slide, please. These are two of the, okay, next slide, please. Two of the programs using digital technology. The JKN, mobile JKN application, and then there is the web-based reporting mechanism. So these two models are basically trying to give people a chance to report if they don't get the access they want. that the access the government provides and secure, including for the poor, doesn't work, they can report through this mechanism. And if you find any difficulty in navigating the system, you should go through this application, JKN Mobile. But next slide, please. The reality, of course, is often far from what the government campaign. Next slide. So this is the research method. We find that unions are aware of this. So a number of unions, union activists, they form groups. It all started back when they had worked together to give birth to this universal coverage of social protection for Indonesians under the KAGS. It's a committee for social protection action, basically. And when the law is finally implemented, they transform themselves to become BPJS Watch. BPJS is the name of the agency that operate this. And BPJS Watch remains, but there are also other groups of unions that transform themselves, such as KSPI is transforming itself into Jampus Watch. They also have a wing to cater to this patient navigation activity. And then in Bekasi and areas of West Java, there's Posko JKN, JKN KIS. So what do? Basically, they provide all these three. They provide information and tips to avail JKN care, the National Health Insurance Care, including when patients are receiving less than expected service from the health providers. They would push for that rights. Option B, they also navigate. They come to hospitals, like the lady on the right-hand side, that picture. They come to accompany the poor to the hospital. They provide transportation, even ambulance care, for instance. Option C is basically, they don't have documentation, formal documentation system that's systematic, but they provide advocacy to health centers and JKN authorities based on the cases that they have handled, so that all the experience from the poor can be captured by the operator of JKN. Next slide. So from what I can gather, so the slide is over, but to highlight here is that we have to be aware that the context of labor union today is not necessarily the same with what labor unions have faced in the past few years. What's left behind by the government is not just the poor, but more and more are the workers. And unions need to be sensitive of this, because it's not just the government having the responsibility, but we have to transform ourselves to make sure we can also cater to the needs of these elements of the society that are increasingly marginalized. Hopefully that's sufficient to provoke discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you. Let's give a big round of applause to Sister Dina. Thank you for the very insightful presentations for us. And so for both of speakers, thank you very much for your informative and interesting talk. And before we continue with the Q&A discussions, I have several points that are interested to explore with both speakers, especially for Ms. Dina and Ms. Mia as well. How Ms. Dina explained about the problems of informality is real at the moment for workers in order to accessing the social securities, and especially for the government also lack to protect of that, lack of protecting the workers, and that's why we need a union to be transformative to monitor and help the workers to accessing the social security benefit. So according to the discussions, I would explore uh, further, especially about what is actually the key successful strategies for the social protections in, especially in the case study of Indonesia and in the case study of India. What in your experience, what is actually the successful strategies made by the civil society or made by the trade union to endorse the government to make it the social protections more comprehensive in a comprehensive way. So I would go first to Miss Mirai, Sister Mirai.
Sure. Thank you very much, Brother Enrico and my sister Dina. I think some of the things I've already mentioned, I think the key thing that we've learned all these years is that unless we organize informal workers into unions, cooperatives, their own workers' organizations, I understand that in some countries it's not easy to unionize, but wherever we can, build workers' unity and solidarity. That is the first most important building block. We all know that. We're all from the labor movement. Because without that, we have neither collective strength nor collective bargaining power, nor do we have the visibility, which is especially needed in the case of informal women workers, to share with the outside world, government, policymakers, politicians, legislators, what it is that we need, that we want, that we demand, since we are so actively contributing to our respective countries' GDP. So I would say organizing is the first and key building block. Second is to show the government what works. Everybody, politicians, policymakers, legislators are also looking for workable solutions. It's not that they're not interested in social protection, but the typical issues that come up, at least in a country like India, is how will we be able to do this? We are such a large, diverse country. We are like many different countries. Where will we get the money from? Those kinds of questions. Who will pay? How will we get employers to pay? Of course, the mass of informal workers in our countries are self-employed, so there's no work, there's no employer. So it behooves the governments of our country to step in where there is no employer. It's obvious. And also it's very hard for them to imagine how to work out all the systems, mechanisms, because they are more used to the formal economy where they're employers and employees, and then, it's more easy to organize things on the shop floor. Well, we don't have a shop floor. Our work space, as you all know, can be the fields, the forests, the seashore, anywhere. So I think showing what works has been really important for us. And then also showing how you can monetize. I forgot to mention one thing, which was that we have set up a system a bit like the navigation by the unions that Sister Dina spoke of, which we call Seva Shakti Kendras. These are hubs of organizing, providing information to the workers and helping them navigate the systems, especially online systems. And the government likes this because this is a way to connect and make sure that the benefits reach the last mile. So these are some of the examples. I think we have to lead by example. If we sit around waiting for our governments to do things, then we'll be sitting around for a long, long time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sister Mirai. So we can go to Sister Dina. If you please make it short because we will go to the Q&A sessions.
Okay, thank you. So if you ask about the best practice, few things to be aware of. Number one is that the fact is exploitation will always happen to those who are marginalized and have less information than they should actually deserve. What you have to realize is that it's a very systematic way to make sure that people don't get the information of what they deserve. Among others, one of the things that I see keep growing lately is to use the educated to have the fear of losing competitiveness. This competition, the sense of competition among countries is not necessarily accurate. And I think the more people talk and work across sector, and they pull out the picture into more macro picture of what does competition means in the international relations, it become more sensible that all this fear is not necessarily true, is quite baseless. Competing, enhancing competitiveness has its own limit, and it will basically always sacrifice certain segments in the society. And it's very hard to unionize the educated sector. So I think what we need to start thinking is that how to educate the educated sector, how to train them to have sensitivity that oftentimes labeling such as inclusive economy, or what Sister Dinda mentioned, flexible economy, is not what it is. It's just a label. It's a facade to something that drove our attention away from what really is the background of that terminologies. So we have to be aware that this whole set of labeling sometimes doesn't quite mean what it says. I often teach my students saying, inclusive economy has its own logic. It's not what you think what inclusive means. So we do need to educate more and more people and make sure they are more sensitive to what each terminology implies. That's a little bit for myself.
Okay, thank you, Sister Dina, for the answer. So, brother and sisters, now we come to the questions and answer sessions. There will be, because of the limited time, maybe there will be one sessions for the 3 questions. So please mention your name and please state to which presenters you address your question. So now we can go to the question and answer sessions.
Sorry, brother Enrico, my sincere apologies, but I will have to leave in about 10 minutes. I'm really sorry because I have some other commitments. I apologize in advance to you and to sisters.
No worries, sisters. No worries, sisters. No worries. So I will collect some questions. There is questions from from Sister Tanya to Sister Dina. Where do you see the special challenges for the young and women workers? Maybe Sister Mirai can also answer these questions as well.
Okay, I will let Sister Mirai answer first before she leaves. Probably there's other question for her.
No.
Sorry, yeah. So the question was how to organize young workers. Sorry.
So the question is, where do you see the special challenges for the young and women workers to access the social protection?
Yeah. So of course, in countries like mine, women are excluded from every aspect of social and cultural life and economic life. So many a times they don't even know. In fact, most of the time, they don't know about the schemes that have been designed for them, that are meant for them, first of all. So no information. Second of all, how to navigate, just like the Indonesian example we heard. How do you navigate that? And how do you navigate, without giving speed money, to put it in plain language, bribes, so that you get your full entitlement? So these are some of the things that are very hard for women and for young people, because like in most of Asia also, we are a country that values age over youth, slowly changing. So when a young person walks into an office and demands her entitlement, um, she doesn't get much of a hearing, especially if she's young and a woman. So that's where the importance of the collective, her union, her cooperative is critical. Alone, it's almost impossible for her to do anything. So I keep coming back, Tanya, to organizing. So I think, getting the information out. One quick thing is that, the young people and increasingly women are much more tech savvy. So during pandemic, we have been using WhatsApp, we have been using digital tools, and they love to do that. So that's a way of getting the information and also, being able to register online, etc.
Okay, thank you, Sister Mirai. So, Sister Dina, do you want to answer these questions, please?
Yes. So the first one for the young, we often hear the term millennials, right? This is the year of the millennials going to job, and many of them now are in the workforce. One thing I noticed also from the survey that I shared with you earlier, what makes them happy is the fact that they have ease to go to work. So things like whether they can do flexible hours of work, they can go to office, luxurious office with, just wearing very informal clothes. That's already make them happy. They don't quite care about being paid how much, so long as they can change job quite fast. So job turnover among the youth is very high. That's what I noticed. They are looking to build up their resume by keep changing jobs. So you notice that the challenge there is that their individuality shines brighter than their solidarity. So that's the reality that we are facing. What if they don't come from social science, most likely they don't quite care about what we have been discussing in this room. So how do we deal with that? Women in particular, I think given this pandemic situation, they have to be able to work multiple jobs at the same time. They do job chores, house chores at home, taking care of the children, doing online schools, as well as doing their work to make sure they can also help feed the family, or they have to feed the family if they are single parent. So the reality that's very ironic for these women is that most of the time they are contract based. They are not hired for a long time period, because people assume they're not interested in having long-term employment, and they have to take care of the family for whatever reason. The skill of women, the ability of women to manage time is not calculated into the wage. It's not included into the price of labor, because women in general are always paid lower than men doing the same kind of jobs. So these are at least two items of issues that we have to voice. We have to make sure we also take care of. I think most of the time, as the picture I show you, yeah, patient navigation initiatives, a lot of the times is also supported a lot by women. They are the one going door to door. They are the face that's friendly for people, that convince people that all these new initiatives from trade unions are not political. It's not something that's wild and is exploiting, trying to exploit money out of people. So it's the face that people can trust. So you can see all this benefit of having women in the movement, but how do we make sure we can incorporate them into the movement? I think that's homework for us to think together.
Yeah, I agree. How we can incorporate the women and youngs into the movement. That's a big question for us. So I would continue for the next questions. Maybe this is the last questions as well for Sister Mirai, before she leave. And you can also give your final statement when you answer these questions. So I would take the questions from Sister Sunsida Sultana from Bangladesh. The formalization in formal sector is increasing day by day. On the other hand, informal sector is blooming in an absence on the initiative of formal sector work. Again, gig economy and digital platform economy is blooming. How we can face such challenges? From the case study in India and also from the perspective of Sister Dina. So I would go first with Sister Mirai.
So I hope I could hear the question properly. I think the question was about the challenge, right? Of facing the challenges given the current state of the economy. Is that what the question was? Sorry, I couldn't hear properly.
Yeah, so the question is how we can face such a challenge on the absence of the formal sector works because of the gig economy and the digital platform.
Oh, because of the gig economy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm sorry to keep on repeating what I say. I mean, I think that we all have to, as was just said by Sister Dina, step up our organizing and perhaps also develop platform cooperatives. So workers have choice, that they don't have to work with exploitative employers in the gig economy, as we heard earlier on. There's no easy answers. I don't have solutions. We're all struggling in this together. One thing we have noticed in the Indian context is still there are very few women workers in the gig economy. Little bit among domestic workers and waste pickers has started. And also there's a good example of waste pickers in India, in Bengaluru, who are forming their own, they have made their own app, and they are using the advantage of digital tools so that people don't have to go to exploitative employers in the gig economy. So I think there are lots of creative models coming out. I know less about Southeast Asia, please forgive me, but in South Asia, there are many such apps. We ourselves are making some of these apps so that we can aggregate the workers as an alternative to the existing gig platforms. And I think platform cooperatives is something that many of us are thinking quite seriously about to meet this challenge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So do you have any final statement that you want to share to us before you leave?
No, I'm just, I've said all I had to say. I'm delighted to be here with all of you, and I thank DGB and TURC most sincerely, and all of you and my co-presenter most sincerely. And if we can ever be of any help to support and share our experiences in any way through exchange visits if COVID permits and so on, we'd be really happy to do that, because my dream would be to see, perhaps we would have one big platform on social protection for all our sisters and brothers in Asia. We can start slowly and build solidarity across borders as well. Maybe it's possible. Just an idea. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much.
And
yes,
again, please
so
forgive me. Yeah, forgive me for leaving in advance, because it's actually on universal healthcare, so I'll have to go. So
no worries, sister. So please take a round of applause for Sister Mirai before she leave us. Bye-bye and see you.
See you. We'll
Thank
be
you.
in touch.
So
take care.
We'll be in touch. Take care, sister. Take care. So I would continue to Sister Dina. Yeah, I would continue to Sister Dina. Sister Dina, how we face such a challenge on digital economy. So I would continue also to Dina's question. I think it's related, because when we are talking about the flexibility and the informality, how can we as a labor activist ensure that the meaning of flexibility itself is not misinterpreted for workers and employers as a hustle culture, which is the tendency now is some young workers interpret flexibility as a hustle culture that can lead to exploitation if not limited. So I think it's familiar with the gig economics as well, and also how we face or how we overcome this challenge.
Okay. So for many, many years, and I think despite the fact that international organizations such as the ILO and internationally there has been campaigns from trade union groups, basically, or confederations, on the importance of social protection, what is still prominent is the belief that job security is on top of the priority, that wage is the one that can solve problems. The more, when I came into this field back in the early 2000s, what I keep saying, and at that time it was still very challenging to say, is that forget about wage. Wage, there's a mechanism to set up wage. Usually it's market-based, but if the market continues to race into the bottom, what everyone should care about is social protection. And social protection does not have to be dependent only on the labor market. It's the responsibility of the state, it's the responsibility of the government to design up different sets of programs that can ensure coverage for all people, regardless of how good or how good they are in the labor market, how skillful they are, or how unskillful they are. Everybody deserves to have social protection. Again, because who benefits from people getting social protection is not the workers themselves, but also the state. As I mentioned earlier, the extent to which people are being covered with social protection means that the state will be relieved from spending more on expenditures like for aiding the poor, providing this kind of programs for the poor, like rice for the poor, things like that. So if the number of poors, we notice the trend in general is will continue to have shocks, and the periods of shocks will get shorter every time. And we notice that health shocks is one thing that will happen for a long time. Even this pandemic may last for another 5 years at least. So that's what people say, in the health sector. What does it mean? It's much more serious than we can imagine. And it's not enough clearly to speak about just wage. So the campaign for social protection needs to be enhanced. It needs to be more loud and understood better by people. That's my first reaction. The second one, I think to answer about the flexibility issue. Basically, when we talk about flexibility, people associate it with working hours that then would relate to how much you are paid. You deserve to be paid. One thing that people always forget is the importance to secure working condition. And it's one thing that's very connected to social protection. If you have poor working condition, if you allow people to work beyond decent 8 hours, or just a little bit more on extra work hour, the consequence will be the health of the individual. The consequence will be modern slavery for those who cannot say no. So decent working condition should be a priority in our campaign. It's not just about job, it's about working condition. And for women these days, as well as the millennials, the youth may not be aware that lurking behind all this opportunity of work and jobs that seems very luring, that can work flexible, is their risk of getting decent protection for their health, for their risk from employment injuries, or even death, because of being exposed to certain kind of illness when they have to go to work. So all of this, back to raising awareness, I think the context have changed. We too need to change our content of advocacy.
Okay, so thank you so much for the explanation, Sister Dina. We still have a lot of questions here to you, so I hope you don't mind to give an answer for those questions. So for the next questions is coming from Mr. Prasetya Pratama from Paramadina University, Indonesia, related to the exploitations that mentions by Professor Dina and the bloom of digital platform economy, stated the question from Ms. Sunzida, we can underline that our huge challenge is the market and the customer itself. The exploitations without we, quote unquote, as a customer, realize does become something that we support, since we will overcome, try to find the cheapest items that we need. As a spillover effect, we also makes company to find and create a sustainable system by only recruiting cheap labor. How can we deal with those complex issues?
Okay. Let me, to answer that, let me step back and draw your attention to other sectors that may not be getting advocacy in this room, which I also deal with at this moment. First, fisher, people working in the capture fishery sector. These workers, they also suffer a lot during this pandemic season. And not only that, given the higher and higher requirement for technology to go fishing around the world, the capacity of smaller fishers is getting pressed even more. They are pushed to learn more about how to use new equipments, and they have to compete against the much bigger vessels that are way beyond their competition league, basically. Fishers in Southeast Asia is basically working on vessels that's only about 5 to 10 gross ton, whereas fishers from Australia, from China, from the United States, their vessels is beyond 3,000 gross tons. So the working conditions of all of these fishers is clearly way out of league. It's impossible to imagine talking about decent wage for them without considering that the competition is simply not fair. And second of all, that the second groups that we also need to remember is migrant workers. I'm here in Bandung now, taking care of the issue of migrant workers. And you notice that migrant workers also fall behind in terms of social protection. They are required to participate in social protection, but their ability to claim benefits is very, very low. Why? Because when they are in the country where they work as migrants, the countries are not welcoming them to have the access to healthcare. They don't even want to discuss cooperation G2G, government to government, to facilitate having all these migrant workers to have accessible and affordable healthcare and treatment for their injuries. So we are facing clearly a very complex situations that if you ask me, I'm not discouraged by all of this. I feel this is more and more it's needed that we as a thinker and people who are experienced in this field try to sort out what issues can be improved and what will be the ripple effect of the little change that we can do in this short run. So what I suggest, for instance, when it comes to customers, you do need to campaign awareness, just like customers in the European Union, for instance, force for us in Southeast Asia to apply traceable seafood products. Why would they know and push for that? Because they put labels on their products saying that it's what you enjoy may come from slavery. So you have to make sure they put the label that says something like that. So I think awareness raising among customers is very, very important. Same thing with customers of migrant workers. They have to be aware that all of these people are not just, they're not slaves. They are human beings, and they come to work, not to do any kinds of work that you tell them to do on very poor working condition. So a lot of things needs to be done, but let's just sort out the things that unions can do, things that academics can do, and then things that policymakers that we advocate can do. If we are very clear about it, provide persistent advocacy, something will change eventually.
Okay, thank you, Sister Dina. So for the next round, I would give an opportunity for the participant to deliver their questions directly to Sister Dina as a speakers. I saw a lot of comments and questions from other Gian. So I would like to give an opportunity for Brother Gian to deliver the questions and the comments directly to Sister Dina. Because I know Brother Gian is one of the young activists who are really active in voicing the issue of decent work for the gig economy workers. So I would like to give an opportunity to Brother Gian to deliver his comments. Brother Gian, are you there? Hello? Brother Gian?
Yes. Brother Otang? Yes?
Okay. Please.
Oh, thank you, Brother Otang. I'm taken off guard because I was just an MC here, but thank you for the opportunity because it's such an amazing opportunity. Also, Sister Dina was one of the lecturers in my alma mater, Paramadina University. So thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. So, Brother Otang, I think I was raising the point about somehow external influences of domestic economic policies and their labor regulations in each country. For example, in Indonesia, we have just also passed, I think it was discussed before by Sister Dinda yesterday, about the omnibus law on job creation, which basically a trend of deregulating our labor market for the sake of flexible economies and flexible work contracts, etc., and increasing the precariety of workers, especially in gig economy workers. But basically, what I want to ask is about the role of those external influences, especially in World Bank, because for World Bank, it's very funny because they have a flip-flop position. So they have been pushing the government to follow the ease of doing business regulations for years with the indicators. One of them is, of course, encouraging deregulating the labor market. And then we passed that so-called job creation law, which deregulate our labor market. And then there was a strike, right? If we remember, all the unions were protesting the government for trying to pass that bill. And then World Bank said, okay, maybe it will be harmful for the environment and for the workers. So maybe we would like to warn the Indonesian government not to pass the bill. But then Indonesian government, through the parliament, passed the bill. And then World Bank returned back to their stance. And then they say, we congratulate you for passing the regulation of your labor market. And people don't notice this all the time because they flip-flop. World Bank always flip-flops through through their projects, development projects, which also increase corruption in many developing countries for years. So I would just want to also ask you about this phenomenon. How far should we be concerned with these organizations with so much funding and so much trust from the public, especially from our public sector, from our government, which always sees and take for granted whatever they say that we need to follow in our economic policies, including deregulating labor markets. So maybe that's what I want to ask Brother Otang and Sister Dina. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I was just an MC here, but thank you for the opportunity once again.
Thank you. We are equal, brother.
Yes.
Now, so it's okay.
Okay, good to see you. When it comes to the world, what you raise, what you raise is very important. Sometimes it's, and I mentioned from the very beginning, this is not about national issue, which many international organizations try to push us into that box. If you perform poorly for your people, you don't give them decent wage, decent social protection, that's your fault. That's the national domestic issue that you should deal with. There must be something wrong in your system that makes you fail to deliver those things. And notice that the recipe that these institutions have been advocating is inclusive economy. This jargon has been heard for many, many years. And if you notice the spirit of this, inclusive economy is actually to sustain the Bretton Woods institutions. Exactly the institutions that you mentioned, the international financial institutions, the Washington Consensus mechanism and principles, and the post-Washington Consensus mechanism, which is basically the government needs to be very strict in monitoring all the monetary policy, fiscal policy, and apply austerity measures as much as possible so that the economy become very efficient. And by efficient, they say it's very slim, actually. When the government is very slim, it doesn't quite spend a lot on subsidizing social protection, subsidizing small, medium enterprises business or micro businesses, the cooperatives that Sister Mireille mentioned. It will be better for the economy. So that's the recipe they have been advocating. Now, I understand the history of all these institutions, and I'm not a structuralist myself. I'm not those who feel that what shapes something is just the barriers or the problems around us. But I believe in the importance of leadership. I believe in the importance of vision in breaking the barriers. So what I see missing in many developing countries is the ability to leverage themselves using the principles that these countries believe, the local and indigenous wisdom is missing. Whenever they do transaction and also diplomacy with other countries, they tend to use the languages that many people are comfortable about. And those languages are exactly the languages like that, flexible, inclusive, seems not offensive in diplomacy, seems very welcoming to economists that everybody feel safe to discuss about. It doesn't provoke the businesses from rejecting the state in participating in lots of international events. You notice there has been proliferation of international events on economy lately, where businesses are carried forward to many diplomacy events. But what's missing is their ability to show that something unequal is happening. Something unfair is actually happening. And I think one of the, two possible reasons is that once a state negotiate with other countries, they have so micro perspective. They look too close to the issue that they miss to see the forest. And second of all, they are already influenced so much that they forgot the faces of their people. And I would like to highlight here as well that the movements of the people since the early 2000, I think most of the time has been very weak. The campaign among civil society as the economy grows higher and higher, gets better and better. Economies in Asia has been growing really well. You notice that, right? The number of middle class in Asia in general has been growing much more than expected. But what's missing is the critical voices. All of this smart people, they get absorbed into the economy, absorbed into the bureaucracy, absorbed into the leadership position, but they forgot to be critical about what is the marginalized are experiencing. They forgot about the sectors that are forgotten. So manufacturing sectors, unions, they just focus on the manufactured sector, the sector that's basically has been dying in the past few decades. Why don't you also pay attention to the gig sector? Why don't you pay attention to the migrant worker sector? Why don't you pay attention to the fishery sectors? These are workers too. They are human beings too. So it's very fundamental, I think, for us to really think what unions are for. Does it only build only for people in the manufacturing sector, or can we actually go beyond? Can we go beyond factory-based union? Can we organize beyond just localities where the people are gathering? Can we go cross that using all the technologies that we have and educate more people about their rights? It's a very fundamental thing. But I agree with Gian that institutions such as World Bank, you mentioned, international financial institutions, they have their own agenda, which is why it's very critical we too look into what we want.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Dina. So I would give a bit last questions, and maybe a few last questions for today. In the previous one, we talking about the government, we're talking about the trade union. So what actually the role of employers actually to make sure that to make sure the accessibility of workers to access the social protections? Because if we refer to the contributory scheme, there's a big role of the employers, especially to registering workers to access the comprehensive social security. If they're failed to fulfill their obligation, then workers wouldn't access at all the social security. So how to push and how to pressure the employers to ensure they will fulfill their obligations then? So
Okay.
this is the questions from brother, I think from the brother Rizwanur Khan.
Okay, so maybe you're familiar with this framework of United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. This guiding principles are just principles if businesses and states do not, and unions do not take this opportunity to make sure that businesses too has a place to actively engage and take part in the creation of decent and actually human rights based working conditions. The importance of United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights is that employers is not seen as an entity that's detached from whatever activity they are doing in any particular country. In a situation where businesses now can go, not physically anymore even, just their money goes somewhere across the border and create jobs somewhere else and draw profits, remittance go back to their country and create wealth for people running the investment, it's not something that should be separated from what the government in that country must then monitor. This is the principle of UN Guiding Principle on Business and Human Rights. The state must take active action, to make sure that all these businesses, be they in the labor intensive or capital intensive, such as the gig economy, they too have to be informed of the regulations and the things that they should avoid or prevent happening when they are doing business in the territory. So if we use this framework, basically what the government must do is to actively inform and do spread informations to all these investors, sending money to e-commerce and crowd work and gig economy in general. Billions and billions of money comes and being taken away to other countries without getting taxed, without noticing how these people are being exploited. So the framework is there, but are we aware that there's a value of using that framework to strengthen our advocacy? I think hopefully by me sharing this idea to you, please check for yourself and read some more and see how this can enhance our activities in advocacy for workers, because I think the opportunity is there. It's just sometimes we're not aware and not quite using the chance.
Okay, so thank you once again for Sister Dina for the comprehensive answer and for the patience to actually answering a lot of questions in this discussion. I think a lot of questions means that there is a big enthusiasm from the participant to get to know your ideas, your insight about our today's discussions. And one key point that I taken actually from these discussions about the importance of organizing and the importance of the solidarity in voicing and influence our voice actually, not only to the government, but also to the employers. And this is the momentum. Actually, the COVID-19 is the momentum for trade union, for us, for the trade union movement to revitalizing ourselves, to be more inclusive in organizing workers and to be strengthened in terms of solidarity in voicing workers, not only in the manufacturing sectors, but also the others working class, such as the gig economy workers, as a new phenomenon in the world of work. So, brothers and sisters, finally, we come to the end of the presentations. We would like to say thanks again for the Sister Dina for her informative and interesting talk. So please big round of applause once again to Sister Dina. And I'm so give a very big thankful to the participant, to the audience for your active participations. Hopefully the presentations will be beneficial for everyone, especially for me and also for QRC itself, to be more organized and care about the issues and the new phenomenon, especially in the terms of young and women workers, and also in the informal and gig economics. So thank you for your attentions. Good afternoon. I would hand over back to the host, and thank you for today's. See you.
Thank you, Brother Otang, Sister Mirai, and Sister Dina for a very informative session on social protection for labor. That was really what we needed to hear. A lot of acknowledgement about the complexities of labor market. So, brothers and sisters, talking about labor market and work And of course, we have to talk about breaks. And now we have our long-awaited breaks. We will have a 10 minutes break, and you can use this time to go to the toilet, do some exercise, or anything that you've been wanting to do. So brothers and sisters, but don't go anywhere. After the break, we still have a very special video that will be played to you and some other agenda as well. See you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. We hope you had a very good and refreshing break with your snacks and everything. So now, brothers and sisters, up to the next agenda, we will now see for the first time this very special animation video that we have prepared for all of you on building solidarity of the future of labor movement. The story of Partivi and Ismail. This video was made by a group of young and progressive artists from Studio Batu, Yogyakarta. Let us now enjoy the video. Wow, that was some impressive, inspiring animations. Let us give some reactions and applause to the video, brothers and sisters. Yes, because these are some amazing works that represent the daily struggles of the working class everywhere. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to call the team behind Studio Batu Yogyakarta to explain a little bit to us about the video. Without further ado, I invite Sister Marcelina and Brother Gregorios Ragil to present, and the screen is yours.
Hello, brother and sister. Thank you for watching the story of Prativi and Ismail today with us. And thank you for staying with us today. First of all, we would like to thank you, Trade Union Rights Center and DGB Bildungswerk for this opportunity to present this animation short movie by Studio Batu. I'm Marcelina, and I would like to introduce my fellow Gregorius Ragil.
Hello, everyone. Hello, brother and sister. Thanks for inviting us to this wonderful events that we can share together our story. As Studio Batu is also part of this creative workers discussed earlier in the session. Thank you.
Yeah, so you just see the animation about Prativi, who present the woman laborers working in a factory. We choose Bangladesh because it is it is one of the most populated country where the woman laborers are working in the factory or like informal workers, and they have been working and have long battle between a poor working condition and then policy implementation in their government. So we are having the urge to telling the story of women workers in Bangladesh who deal with triple burden, domestic, public, and her relation with the government institution. Meanwhile, we Ismail as young workers who work in the modern city of Jakarta, living in the urban development landscape, where many residential have been developed into like apartment, and then we would like Ismail to present the young workers who can empower other fellow workers to utilize the technology such as social media to tell the message to more public and to the workers union to raise their voice. We would like to introduce today Studio Batu. Joining with us also some of members of Studio Batu who is based in Yogyakarta. Studio Batu is a multidisciplinary studio who is established in 2013, and we are consisting of artists from different background of like fine art, filmmaking, music, architecture, sociology, and anthropology. And we start creating a short film and short animation movie about everyday modern myth. And then we always like to show the different stories which in the spirit of seriousness and also playfulness, as what you can find in the story of Prativi and Ismail. I would like to give the time for Brother Ragil to tell more about Studio Batu, and yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chela, for giving me time to also share story and share the process of making the story of Prativi and Ismail. The story of Prativi and Ismail pretty much resonate to what we as Studio Batu as also part of this creative workers in Indonesia struggle and try to survive, navigate this seemingly never-ending crisis. Even so, the country, the state, Indonesia, often claim that the informal sector, including creative sectors and the newly bloom digital sectors, take the role as the lifebelts of the national economy. And the data often also claims that the growth has been increasing since 5-7 years, but oftentimes the general picture, the big picture of the national economic growth doesn't always coincide with our daily struggle. If the state says that we are the life phase of the national economic, who then provide our own life as well as same story as Prativi and Ismail. So this is a very interesting opportunity for us to also resonate our concerns, and by making these two stories that can maybe become the bridge to the bigger audience, that there are a lot of concerns regarding this labor force, this creative, this digital, this newly, if I want to recall what Sister Dina said earlier during the presentation, that all those labels seems just labels, because the struggle is real, especially during this pandemic, the seemingly never-ending crisis that we should navigate, and the social protections seems not that available for us, and we've been basically relying on network and friendship. In the meantime, the availability of a project or job is limited, so we are risked to be entrapped to this competitive kind of world that makes maybe the solidarity is a bit, in concern as well. If we're about to talk about this kind of solidarity that the workers should really incorporate to each other. Maybe that's a little bit a reflection from Studio 2 during the process of making these stories that resonate to our experience. Thank you, Cella.
Thank you, Brother Ragriel. So we really hope that this story of Prativi and Mail can resonate and bring hope during this pandemic and difficult situation. So we would like to encourage all of you fellow workers all around the world, and by coming together through solidarity. So thank you so much. We would like to give the host for the next discussion.
Brothers and sisters, please give a round of virtual applause to Sister Marcelina and Brother Gregorius. Such an amazing explanation, amazing animation. We like to see representation of the working class in more art and movies and animations. Thank you, brothers and sisters. So, I would like also to remind you, brothers and sisters, that the animation video will also be available on the given link in the chat box below for you to rewatch or share with your networks. Feel free to share it through your social media and tag TURC and Studio Batu Yogyakarta. Brothers and sisters, the launch of the video animation studio, the story of Prativi and Ismail, marks the end of today's agenda. But please, don't leave the room yet, brothers and sisters. We still have a photo session at the end of the event. And behind the scene video of how spectacular team of TURC are working together to make this online event possible. Make sure you don't miss it out. And now, brothers and sisters, let us have a moment for 2 minutes to complete the feedback form. As usual, scan a QR barcode that is shown on your screen right now, here beside me, or you can click on the given link in the chat box below. We will give you some minutes to complete it, like 2 minutes from now, so please take your time. Brothers and sisters, finally we have reached at the end of our workshop. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you who have attended this event on the behalf of the TURC team, all the speakers, all the participants. Thank you for coming. Today is also the final day to open for Public Regional Workshop 2021, supported by DGB Bildungswerk Germany and hosted by the Trade Union Rights Center. Tomorrow, all project partners of the DGB BW in Asia will still have one day of discussion that will be led by the TURC team themselves. Sister Dinda will follow up to the project partners on the details of the link tomorrow through email. So make sure you check your emails, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, it was an honor for me to be part of this meaningful workshop. I hope it's beneficial and bring an impact to you and inspire you to take actions, unionize, and fight for workers' rights everywhere in the world. To close this event, let us all have a meaningful photo session. So, brothers and sisters, please, you may open your camera and video and wait for the lead of the committee to screenshot the pages. I will help you count, and I will say the usual 1, 2, 3. And for just as usual, we will take each pictures of each page twice. All right, brothers and sisters, are you ready? The first page. 1, 2, 3. Another pose, maybe? Solidarity or something else? Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now we go upon the next page in 1, 2, 3. All right. Another pose. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Brothers and sisters, that concluded our event for today. Once again, thank you for having me. I'm Margianta Surahman, or Gian, from Emancipate Indonesia. I'm really grateful to be here and hosting you for the past 3 days. Goodbye for now. See you around in the fields where we will all be working in the same goal to achieve decent work for all. And please enjoy the little behind-the-scenes video that we have prepared for you.
I'm Dinda Wahid from Trade Union Rights Center. Brothers and sisters, we are now in the Regional Workshop 2021 Trade Union Solidarity in Pandemic Times. With the help of the crew of Karsa Creative, it is now the event, and let's see the activities.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and good morning, brothers and sisters. Welcome to DGB BW Asia Partners Regional Workshop 2021.